يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود أحلت لكم بهيمة الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم غير محل الصيد وأنتم حرم إن الله يحكم ما يريد يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تحلوا شعائر الله ولا الشهر الحرام ولا الهدي ولا القلائد ولا آمين البيت الحرام يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا وإذا حللتم فاصطادوا ولا يجرمنكم شنآن قوم أن صدوكم عن المسجد الحرام أن تعتدوا وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان واتقوا الله إن الله شديد العقاب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Last time we finished Surah An-Nisa and we discussed multiple topics which include the status of Isa alayhi salam, and we discussed in detail the Trinity concept and all the things that are wrong with it. Then we discussed the ubudiyya, meaning the status of slavery of all people, including the prophets, in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and including the malaika. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the reward for those who believe and the adhab for those who disbelieve. And He reminded us of the burhan and the nur that has been given to us. And then He finished the surah going back to the ayat of inheritance. And we did it in a quick session in terms of the aspects of inheritance, and we've completed inheritance in previous lectures in the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, so we didn't do it in any kind of detail. But before we go on and do Surah Maidah, did anyone have any outstanding questions on inheritance? Anyone had a chance to listen to the lecture or not yet? Okay. So inshallah, make time inshallah to listen to it. It's worthwhile listening. We start Surah Al-Maidah. Surah Al-Maidah is a Madani surah. The definition of a Madani surah is a surah that has been revealed after the Hijrah. Even though there are ayat in Surah Al-Maidah that have been revealed in Mecca. And the third ayah has been revealed in Arafat. Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum. There are other ayat that are revealed at the time of the conquest of Mecca, and there are other ayat here that are revealed when the Prophet ﷺ was doing the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. So there are multiple ayat in the surah that are in Mecca. However, because they are revealed after the Hijrah, the surah is called a Madani surah. Imam al-Qurtubi mentions in the tafsir of Surah Al-Maidah, in the beginning of it, he mentions that this surah contains many ahkam that are final and complete, meaning they are not mansukh. And the reason he says for this is because a large portion of these ayat are revealed in the 9th and the 10th year of Hijrah. And so there was no further ayat that came that would make them mansukh. He also mentions that Al-Yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum is in Surah Al-Maidah. However, there are some ayat that come even after this ayat that are ayat of ahkam. And so when we will come to this ayah, we will explain what is the meaning of this. By and large, understand that Surah Al-Maidah is similar to Surah An-Nisa in that it has ayat of ahkam, ayat of rulings. The second way it is similar is that it talks about the actions of the Yahud and the Nasara, and similar to Ali Imran and Nisa and Baqarah, is what the Muslims should not do. However, the angle of Surah Al-Ma'idah is different. Just like in Baqarah, the angle was that leadership is being changed from Bani Israel to the Muslims. In Ali Imran, it was their misguidance and how you should follow their guidance. In Surah Al-Nisa, it was with regards to jihad. And in regards to Surah Al-Ma'idah, it is going to be with regards to the uqud, which is that Allah took a promise from Bani Israel. They did not maintain the promise. So Allah details out what they broke in terms of their promises, and He details to us what promises we should keep. And a large part of this surah will talk about halal and haram, and we'll come through it over and over again.
What's the difference between An-Nisa and Baqarah? You say one is for the
Baqarah is with regards to Allah detailing what mistakes they did, okay, and why He is taking the leadership from them and giving it to the Muslims. Okay? And Surah An-Nisa is with regards to jihad, how they failed in the concept of jihad, and how the kayfiyah of jihad is for us. Okay? So it is less about them and more about us. And the second aspect of Surah An-Nisa, actually no, sorry, Surah Ali Imran, I'm getting confused between Ali Imran. Ali Imran was about their shubuhat. Okay? And Surah An-Nisa is about the jihad component, and Ma'idah is with regards to the promises, the uqud. Okay? And then Allah will follow Ma'idah with An'am with regards to further things that are halal and haram. So now for the next two surahs, Ma'idah and An'am, we will be discussing halal and haram a lot. And it is, before we go into the subject, it's worthwhile mentioning that our children and those people who grew up in the West, they have this big deal around halal and haram. They will say that everything is haram in the religion, everything is difficult. What is halal? I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I can't eat this. And the reality of the situation is that we live in a liberal country who want to keep on pushing the boundaries of normality and what is morally correct. And therefore, a lot of what they will do will be incorrect, number one. Number two, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned simple things as being haram, and the country we live in that they use those components a lot of, then obviously many things will become haram as a result of that. But the actual number of things that are haram are not that many. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will list them here, and we will go through that in detail. The third thing I want to say before moving on to the tafsir of this surah is that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqud is the beginning of the surah and is the theme that runs the entirety of the surah. That all you who believe, keep your promises, and it's mutlaq. Promises with who? We'll come into that in detail. So it's interesting that throughout the Quran, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu means O you who believe. Right? Here the Mufassirun have discussed one interesting aspect, which is that they discuss that Allah is on the one hand saying to the believers, keep your promises, but He's also indirectly addressing Ahlul Kitab, that Ahlul Kitab, keep your promises. Okay, now you will say, but they are not the ones of belief, right? Ya ayyuhalladhina is those who believe. So the Mufassirun have done a ta'wil here by saying, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu bil kitabi. Okay, those of you who believe in the kitab. And Ahlul Kitab come under the category of all those who believe in the kitab. They are not the direct addressee. The direct addressee is those who have actually been given the kitab, who are the Muslims. And indirectly the Ahlul Kitab are being told, you should also believe just like the Muslims are believing. So that's the overall theme of the surah, that you will see that in the surah Allah will bring in the stories of shaitan, how shaitan has misguided Ahlul Kitab. Allah will direct the conversation again to Ahlul Kitab, keep your promise, do not say so and so, and then he'll come back to the Muslims again and discuss things that are halal and haram, and this will be the overall theme, inshallah. The other thing that you will notice about Surah Al-Ma'idah is that it has long ayat, okay? And so we will do a number of ayat where we might not complete the ayah within the class, and that's fine, we will just complete it in the next class. To give you an idea of how much work is required to do this, 1.5 pages, Imam Qurtubi spent 45 pages doing the tafsir of it. Another Tafsir al-Madhari that I read commonly, over 30 pages. So these first 5 ayat are packed with tidbits, a lot of tafsir that we can do, and we can spend a long time. So, don't get concerned if I take a long time. It's because the Mufassirun spent a long time. There are many things that will be spent here that you will not find again in the Quran, so it's worthwhile discussing. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود أحلت لكم بهيمة الأنعام. What is the uqud? Uqud is the promises, and the meaning is uhud. Okay, ahd, which is a promise. Who is they promise with? Their promises here are going to be of 2 classes with 2 definitions each. Okay, one is the ahd between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the second is the ahd between each other. Okay, human being with human being. Okay. Now, one further definition is that this promise is with regards to what is the ahd between us and Allah with regards to everything that is religious matters. Whatever Allah has told us is halal al-haram, whatever is our aqidah, what is the mu'amalat, all those kinds of things, we keep our promises with regards to that. Okay. Second definition is, no, these promises are every single thing. I promised I will wake up and go to the gym. Can we say that going to the gym has anything to do with the religion? Generally not, right? Someone can make the niyyah that he is going to the gym for health reasons, so it automatically becomes something that is rewarded, right? But let's say, just give this example that a person, intends to go to the gym, so he should keep his promise that he made to himself. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, keep all promises that you make, particularly the promise that you make with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, particularly the promise that you do with each other. This is the basis for all relationships. And if we do not keep the promise that is in those relationships, then everything falls apart. Nothing will stay. The nikah that a person does, the asl of the nikah is an exchange, right? The exchange of rights. So if the husband does not give the rights to his wife that she is due, or the wife does not give the rights that the husband is due, then what happens? The relationship falls apart. If the person goes to work and he's working from home, my relative was telling me that they have this system where if you walk away from the computer, then the Skype, after 5 minutes, it goes from green to yellow. So the boss knows you're not at your desk, right? So people have bought devices where they can put it on their mouse, and it keeps shaking their mouse after every 3 or 4 minutes. So they're actually not doing any work, but the computer is showing that they are at their desk. And they say, oh yeah, no, I didn't have enough time to do this project, I need more time, the project was difficult. So actually they're not doing any work, but they're taking the full salary. And so this kind of thing is basically not keeping the promises with each other. So all kinds of relationships are dependent on us keeping the promises with each other. Now, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala start with the halal and the haram? One of the reasons is that Bani Israel did not follow the laws that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them in all matters. One of the matters that they did not follow was with regards to halal and haram. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala detailed it out to us so that there is no longer any issue. The ikhtilafat are there in the matters that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not define, to us. But by and large, most of the fuqaha agree with each other. أُحِلَّتْ لَكُمْ, Allah has made halal for you bahimatul an'ami. The first thing to say is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made everything that is vegetables halal for us. Right? All kinds of vegetables, the things that we grow, the lentils, all those kinds of things are halal. So the general principle with all those things that they are halal until proven that they are haram. Can you give me an example of a vegetable that can be haram? Sorry?
Weed.
Wheat, good. Good, yeah. So something that is poisonous, right? You know, if you turn barley into alcohol, it was originally, you know, grains. All grains are halal, but you made the barley into alcohol, so it became haram, right? So, but by and large, all kinds of wheat, all kinds of vegetables will be halal unless they are proven to be something that is harmful or intoxicating, right? With regards to meat, it is the opposite. It is haram unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it halal for us. Now, understand the basic principle is that vegetables and things that are grown from the ground, although they have a life, they don't have a life that the animals have, okay? And then all animals have a life. So to eat it, you actually have to take its life. And when you take its life, it has to be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made that halal for you, because the basic principle is that you don't take the life of anything at all. Do you understand this? Okay. So Allah says that I have made this thing halal for you. So now then keep to the boundaries of what I have made halal. And the problem is that our children that grow up in the West, their thinking is that everything is halal except something that is proven haram. But this is not the case. The case is that all meat is haram unless it's proven that it is halal. Bahimatul an'ami, bahima basically comes from the word that is an animal that does not have tamyiz. Yani it's, for want of a better word in English, is dumb, right? And Allah says about the an'am, inhum illa kal an'am, right? He describes things that are dumb like they are cattle. Now, Allah has given the ability and given the fadl to humanity that they have domesticated animals. And those animals, they just stay within the fence. They don't ask, you know, why am I here, right? Why do I have to eat grass? I don't want to eat grass today. I want to eat this. Let's wake up every single day. Sorry?
They don't have intelligence.
They don't have intelligence. That's right? So they are domesticated. They don't have the intelligence. That is the meaning of bahima. And an'am is cattle. Okay? There are 4 kinds of animals. I described this a few weeks ago. I'll just remind you that are generally allowed. These are the baqarah, which is the cows, the camels, the sheep, the goat. All these animals walk on 4 legs. So some people have said that the bahima actually means those animals that walk on 4 legs, but that they are domesticated. Then another mufassirun have said that here bahimatul an'ami means those wild animals that are hunted to eat. Okay? For example, the deer, the rabbit, and those kinds of animals. Generally, these animals are not domesticated, but they are hunted to eat their meat. Those things are also halal for us. Also remember that carnivorous animals, so animals that eat other animals, are not halal. Okay, no one considers lions and tigers and cheetahs halal things, even though they walk on 4 legs. And anything that is poisonous is not considered halal. Illa ma yutla alaykum. Except, Allah says, all these things are halal except for the things that are recited to you. All the mufassirun say this is ayah number 3 of Surah Maidah. Okay? Ma yutla alaykum meanings the exception to what is halal will come in ayah number 3. And we will discuss that when we will come there. غَيْرَ مُحِلِّ الصَّيْدِ وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمٌ. That when you are wearing ihram, you are not allowed to hunt. Okay? The only things that you are allowed to eat when you are in ihram are the meat that is not hunted and the meat from the sea, meaning they fish. So a person, when they are wearing ihram, they cannot go hunting for a deer or something else, because that's part of the rules of ihram. So Allah says, I made two things halal for you. I made everything halal for you, but there are two exceptions. When you are wearing ihram, you cannot hunt, and the things that are mentioned in ayah number 3. Inna Allaha yahkumu ma yurid. Verily Allah gives hikmah to whatever He desires. Okay? Now in here is something important. One is that Allah is saying, you don't decide what is halal and haram, Allah decides. Number 2, you may not necessarily understand the hikmah behind it. What is the hikmah that Allah has made something that is slaughtered halal and something that falls from a cliff haram? They both died. If I stun a sheep and it dies from the stunning, it becomes haram. And if I slaughter it, it becomes halal. So I said, well, what's the hikmah? So it says, you don't necessarily need to understand the hikmah. Allah has decided that one is halal and one is haram, and that's the end of the matter. So here, the essential thing is that for you to follow halal and haram requires iman first. And that's the basic problem with our ummah that lives in the West, that the iman is weak, so they start to question, why is this haram, why is this halal, and they start to try and find ways between things that leads them to the haram. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuhillu sha'air Allah. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a list of things that Allah says, do not make these things halal. So number 1 says, sha'air Allah, al-shahr al-haram, al-hadiya, al-qala'ida, amin al-bayt al-haram. Okay, these 5 things Allah says, do not make these things halal. Meaning all these things have a hurmat attached with them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made them sacred components of the religion. The first is sha'air Allah. Allah mentions in Surah Al-Hajj. Surah Al-Hajj is Allah says, وَمَنْ يُعَذِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whoever gives ta'zim, when he makes something great, he gives importance to the sha'air of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that is from the signs of فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. It is from the taqwa of the hearts. He also says, وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ حُرُمَاتِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ. Whoever gives ta'zim to what Allah has made haram, that is better for him. Okay, that is ayah number 30 and ayah number 32 of Surah Al-Hajj. The sha'air of Allah are all the things that are sacred landmarks in Hajj. For example, Muzdalifah, Mina, Arafat, Maqam Ibrahim, Safa, Mina, the Kaaba, all those things are signs of the religion. Now these are landmarks that are signs of religion. But there are other things that are sha'air Islam. For example, Jumu'ah is a sha'air of Islam. The Eid prayers are sha'air Islam. The masajid are sha'air Islam. All these things are symbols of their religion, and they should be made sacred as a result of that. You should not do things therein that Allah says don't do. Okay? So for example, the fighting in the Masjid al-Haram. Right? Allah says, don't make those things halal. When Allah has made them haram, if Allah gives you the exception, He gives you an exception, then that's fine. But in general, the rule is, don't fight in those areas. Don't do wrong things in those areas. Understand now that anything that is a sha'air Islam, if a person gets rewarded for it, when he does a sin, he gets a greater sin. Okay? If, for example, if outside the masjid I swear at someone and he is not due the swearing, I get a sin for it. And if I do that inside the masjid, then the sin is greater. Okay? This is a principle that you already understand. وَلَا الشَّهْرَ الْحَرَامَ. And the months that are haram. There are 4 months that are haram. Who remembers them? Sorry, Muharram. That's, you got the easy one out of the way. Yes, what else? No. Good. Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram. These 3 are in a row. Okay? And then Rajab is in the middle. And you remember that the reasons are that Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram are the months are haram, that you cannot fight in these months to allow the people to travel to Hajj. So people would leave their houses in Dhul Qa'dah to get to Mecca. And by the time they would return, it would be Muharram. So going and coming, and while they are there, no fighting. And then Rajab would be a month that there would be no fighting, so that people could go and do Umrah safely in those months. So Allah said no fighting in these months. Okay? These are different to Ashurul Hajj. What are the months of Hajj? Ashurul Haram and Ashurul Hajj are different. Ashurul Hajj are Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. Okay? Why is that? Because people after Ramadan, they can start making the niyyah for Hajj. So it's acceptable from Shawwal. But fighting has to stop from Dhul Qa'dah. And as you know, there has been many wars in Ramadan itself. So Ramadan is neither a month of Hajj and neither a month of Haram. Okay? Something worthwhile remembering. وَلَا الْهَدِيَةِ. The hadiyah is the animal that is designated to take for Hajj, for the slaughtering, to go with your Hajj. Okay? So Allah says, once you have designated that hadi as a animal of Hajj, after that you cannot change your mind. You cannot say, oh, I made this halal and now I will slaughter it and eat it. No, that is now for Hajj. It's designated. Its only thing will be to be used for that. Of course, in the books of fiqh there are exceptions to that rule. وَلَا الْقَلَائِدَ. The qala'id is the markings that are put on the animals that are taken for Hajj. Okay? So for example, someone puts something on the ear to mark the yellow tag belongs to this group or that kind of thing, then those markings, even Allah says, take care of that too. Even though what is the purpose of those markings? It's just that it is a sign. So Allah is saying, as if to say, that He says, Sha'air al-Islam, protect that. Within the category of Sha'air al-Islam is the months of Hajj. Within the category of months of Hajj is the animal that you take. Within the category of the months of Hajj are the markings of the animal. Okay? So those of you who are pondering and thinking, why does Allah do this? Right? What He is saying is that I'm giving you example of minute details. Here's the overall thing. Take care of everything. But to give you an example of how much I want you to take care of things, He gives you the smallest example, which is the qala'id. You understand that? That means all small things within these categories, take care of everything within that. Take care of the big and the small. وَلَا آمِينَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامِ. Those people who have intended to go for Hajj. And the Mufassirun say that at the time that this ayah was revealed, some of the Sahaba had tried to stop the mushrikeen who intended to do Hajj. Okay? That they were going out, so they said, no, you can't go out and do Hajj. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, don't stop them. In Surah At-Tawbah, Allah says, إِنَّمَا الْمُشْرِكُونَ نَجَسٌ فَلَا يَقْرَبُوا الْمَسْجِدَ بَعْدَ عَامِهِمْ هَذَا. That the mushrikun are najas, they will not come close to Bayt al-Haram after this. So it seems that this ayah here in Maidah was revealed before that ayah in Surah Tawbah. Okay. So even though I said that almost everything is muhkam, here's an example of something that is mansukh. So the Muslims can stop the kuffar from going to Sha'air al-Islam. And that's what they should do. Here a discussion can take place on what about those people who are coming inside Masjid al-Haram to do mischief or terrorism or that kind of thing. And the answer is that they will be in the same category. They can also be stopped in the basic principle that those people are not coming for the purpose of Hajj, they are coming for the purpose of fasad. And where fasad happens, then the state can take the authority to stop them from coming to the Masjid al-Haram. So we had the situation that the people from Iran were stopped 1 year to come for Hajj. And there was this big debate on whether that's correct or not correct. Wallahu a'lam. That if they were coming for mischief, then it is correct. And if they are coming for the purpose of doing Hajj, then it is not correct. They should not be stopped. Then you will find some people who have this discussion that the government that is doing a quota system that is inherently incorrect. And so some people have this view that no one can be stopped. Whoever wants to come and do Hajj, everyone can come, right? And the other party says, no, the authority, the government has the authority to say that we have capacity for this many people, so only this many people will come. And I think this is a fair fatwa. يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَرِضْوَانًا. They are coming for the fadl of Allah and ridwan. Now fadl generally means the rizq of the dunya. Okay? And so remember that in that time, even until a few decades ago, people that would come for Hajj would come for tijara. They would bring all their merchandise, and in Mina, they would do buying and selling, right? So this fadl is what Allah is saying, that they are coming for the fadl, so don't stop them, even though they are not coming exactly for Hajj. وَرِضْوَانًا, they also desire the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now regardless of if that aqidah was correct or not correct, they cannot be stopped according to the timing of this ayah. وَإِذَا حَلَلْتُمْ فَاصْطَادُوا. When you take off the ihram, when does the person take off the ihram? When he has done the Arafat and he has done the tawaf and he has done the other actions, and he takes off his ihram. So Allah says that when you take off the ihram, then you can hunt. Here the fastadu is in sigha of amr. It is in the grammatical form of order. So the Mufassirun say here the meaning is not order, the meaning is of ibaha. It is allowed to do. Okay? And the general principle in grammar is that if something was not allowed before and now you are being given an order to do it, it's not saying you must do it, it is saying you can do it. Okay? This is similar to where Allah gives the order, فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. Okay, He gave the order to hit the woman, and the reason was not that you should hit the woman, but now it was not allowed before, you can do it if the conditions are met. So the same form there. وَلَا يَجْرِمَنَّكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَنْ صَدُّوكُمْ عَنِ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ أَنْ تَعْتَدُوا. This is very interesting. Surah Nisa was about jihad, right? So here Allah says, do not let the animosity of people let you cross the bounds. Okay? The Quraysh stopped them from going to do Umrah. The Quraysh took them out of their homeland, kicked them out. They killed their brothers and their fathers and their sons. Allah still says, do not let the animosity let you cross the bounds. You can't cross the bounds. What Allah, the hudud, He has allowed you to do, that is what you are allowed to do. I believe it was Ali bin Abi Talib, or was it Umar radiallahu anhu? I can't remember which sahabi it was. He was fighting. And as he was fighting, he was overpowering the kafir. And the kafir then spat on his face. And he had him on the floor. He was about to chop off his head. And then Umar radiallahu anhu walked away. And he said, why did you walk away? He said that before I was fighting you, fi sabilillah. But when you spat on my face, and now I was taking personal revenge. And so, at this point I said, I'm not going to cross the bounds. Because what I was fighting for previously was fi sabilillah. Now it will be personal. Okay? And so he walked away. He did not fight him. Right? And so this concept is, you will not find it in any ideology anywhere in the world. And they call Islam to be a barbaric religion. Right? This single ayah, it's not even an ayah, it's a sentence, a phrase within the ayah, is enough to show all the non-Muslims all over the world that we are nowhere near barbaric. In fact, we set the standards of what a human being should be. That even when a person comes to you, let me give you an example. I have Serbian patients. What did the Serbians do to our Bosnian brothers and sisters? It's unspeakable things, okay? But when you're dealing with them, you don't cross the bounds, right? You deal with them as the human being. In fact, the fuqaha mention that when a enemy is captured, then the doctor is forced to treat the non-Muslim captive just like he would treat his own Muslim soldiers, to the same degree. He doesn't say that you are inferior because you're my enemy. No. He actually treats them in the same way he would treat them. There's no difference at that point. And similarly, when a person has a personal grudge against someone and he comes seeking to him for help, do not let that grudge stop you from helping a fellow human being. A person's actions should be above his emotions and what he does. So that emotions should be under person's control, not that the emotions control the person. وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى. Allah says, help each other on the birr and the taqwa. The birr means good things, doesn't it? We did the whole ayah of Ayat al-Birr in Surah Al-Baqarah, right? And Allah describes all the things that are good there. In fact, all of those things are taqwa. So just like Iman and Islam, Iman means Islam, Islam means Iman. But when the two are joined, they mean separate things. So birr here means all the things that are good with regards to the dunya. And the taqwa here means all the things that are good with regards to the akhirah. So Allah says, help each other in doing the things that are good for the dunya, and help each other in doing the good things that are there for the akhirah. Here what happens is that a person says that I'm for the Liberal Party, and the other one says, no, I'm for the Labour Party. And so when it comes for the good things, the person says, I don't care what your idea is, you're from the other party, therefore you are wrong. They don't actually work for what should be the good thing. Whatever the other party is doing necessarily has to be wrong. And Allah says, no, work with each other to do the good things, no matter what party they claim to be, what race they come from, whatever form that they come from. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And do not help each other on the ithm, which is all kinds of sin, وَالْعُدْوَانِ, which is all kinds of crossing the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. And have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Verily Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severe in His punishment. Just like Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Maidah has multiple reminders of taqwa. So today I will give you a quick reminder of what taqwa is, and then after that I won't remind you again. In fact, I will get from you guys, what is taqwa? What are the 6 points?
Fear from Allah.
Good.
Yeah. Anything that leads you to fear Allah is taqwa. Generally, it's
Okay.
a general name.
Yes. Who remembers the 6 points?
Someone had the conscience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, that's the answer. But what are the 6 points I taught you? Yes.
Fear Allah,
Yes.
fear the punishment, from the punishment.
Is it in your notes somewhere? Yes?
Not here.
Not here, okay.
Fear
Oh, keep
from
going.
punishment,
Yes,
hope for the reward,
yes.
and think like that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you. You see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if you don't see, for sure Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you.
That's ihsan. This last point is ihsan. Yes. You want to give it a try?
So doing a good deed.
Doing good deeds.
Notes here.
Good.
For the pleasure of Allah.
For the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
From the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No.
Trust.
Go back.
Okay.
The first point was
Doing the good deeds.
doing the good deeds, following the awamir of Allah, what Allah has ordered us to do with the nur of Allah, desiring the pleasure of Allah. That's 3 points, yes? First one is doing good deeds based on knowledge, desiring the pleasure. Next 3 points are staying away from sins with the knowledge of Allah, fearing the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So taqwa has both fear, knowledge, and desiring the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, doing the good deeds, staying away from the bad deeds. That's all the things, okay? The actual word taqwa comes from wiqaya, which is shield. To put a shield between you and the adhab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person who puts a shield between himself and Allah and the adhab of Allah is always conscious of the punishment of Allah. And that's where, in English we say it is God consciousness. Okay? If a person is not conscious that he is being watched, then he will not put a shield between him and the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ. Let's do whatever we can of this ayah, and then we will stop where we get to. حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةُ. Allah will now say that multiple categories are haram. Okay, there will be the mayta, الدم, لحم الخنزير, وما أهل لغير الله به, والمنخنقة, والموقوذة, والمتردية, والنطيحة, وما أكل السبع. And then we'll come to the exception of إلا ما ذكيتم وما ذبح على النصب, that is 10. وأن تستقسموا بالأزلام. There are 11 things that are mentioned in this ayah, one after the other. So we'll go through these quickly. Allah has made haram for you the mayta. The mayta is the animal that was found dead already. However, it died. And usually this means that it died from disease or old age. Okay? This is straightforward. Ad-dam is the blood that flows. The Sahaba Kiram, they slaughtered the animal and the blood flowed out. The meat, they cooked it immediately. And as it cooked, all meat has a little bit of blood inside it, and they ate that, and the Prophet ﷺ did not stop them. Okay, it is impossible to get all the blood out from an animal, but the blood that flows as you slaughter it, that blood is haram to drink it or to cook it or to use it. Okay, the blood that remains in the capillaries within the meat is jaiz, no issue with that. You have blood within the liver and the spleen, that is jaiz, no issue with that.
Fresh. If you eat fresh meat without a raw meat.
Raw meat, yes. Yes, no issue with that. That's fine as well, because that's not considered blood. Okay? The eating of fresh meat, that may not be healthy for you, but here the discussion is of halal and haram. Yeah.
Some people say about liver, like, it is halal, right?
Yes. As I said, the liver, the spleen, it naturally contains blood, and that is halal. So what they have said, ad-dam al-masfuh, the flowing blood that flows out as the animal is slaughtered. وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ, and the meat of the pig. In Surah Al-Baqarah, we discuss this لحم الخنزير. Most of you are not there, so we'll just do a brief discussion. Allah used the word the meat of the pig, and some contemporary scholars have said that that means that only the meat of the pig is haram, and then that means everything else is halal to use. And this is unfortunate that they have said that, because the fuqaha throughout history have done the tafsir of this surah by saying that the meat is the thing that is the main component of the animal, and everything that attaches to it is haram. So what things attach to it?
Skin.
The tendons, the fat, the bones. Oh, that's the main things. No one really eats the organs or uses the inside of the organs of the pig anyway. So all those kinds of things. So if Allah had said the fat of the pig, then we could have said that means something very specific. But because He said the meat of the pig, that means everything that is useful of the pig is considered haram. The second discussion point then here is the leather of the pig. What is the status of the leather of the pig? The fuqaha have said that the leather of the pig is haram. Okay? We discussed when we did the section on najasa that Imam Malik has the opinion that the leather of the pig is not najas of itself. Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, Imam Abu Hanifa say that the leather of the pig is najas. Okay? Can't be used. And then we also said that Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal says that all kinds of leather he does not consider, even if it is tanned. So a couple of scholars that are notable, what's his name? Dawood al-Zahiri, and one more Imam of the Zahiriyya have said that the pig leather is halal to use. Now understand that they are both from the Zahiriyya. And the Zahiriyya, the madhab of the Zahiriyya was that if Allah said lahm al-khinzir, that means only lahm al-khinzir. Okay? And that means everything else is useful. The Zahiriyya did not really have any followers that stayed throughout history. So the test of time did not show that they were correct. The people that are closest to them are the modern day Salafis. Even the modern day Salafis say that we don't use the leather of the pig. So notable scholars like Shaykh al-Uthaymeen and Bin Baz, Shaykh al-Albani, they all say that we should not use the leather of the pig. The final point to say is that in the Maliki school, there is a secondary opinion that the leather of the pig can be used. Okay? It's a secondary opinion. It's not an opinion from the Imam, but it is an opinion from some of his people within the madhab. But by and large, if you go to the Malikiyya, they will say that you should not use the leather of the pig to be on the safe side. I read a statistic today that approximately 11% of all leather in the world is pig leather. Okay? And it has particular characteristics that it can be recognized, and it is generally used for gloves. Okay? And the lining of shoes. Okay? Yeah. So it is something that is worthwhile investigating. There are certain brands that use it more than others. I won't name brands because I don't want to say the wrong things, because things can change over time, but it is worthwhile investigating.
Something Zahiri that we can commonly understand it is the leather from pig skin.
Yeah, I mean, like it typically has a 3-dot kind of formation.
It has holes in it.
Yeah, it has holes in it because of the hair follicles of the pig. So it is something that a person should look into. I generally, when I'm buying the shoes, I ask them, is it bovine shoes? Is it porcine shoes? And generally the person at the counter knows that. And you can find it from the websites of the shoe companies. It's not that difficult. وَلَحْمُ الْخِنْزِيرِ. Within the medical world, it's interesting that when you go, a lot of capsules use pig things. One of the blood thinners we use worldwide has pig components within it. A lot of surgical material that we use that is left inside the body of the person has pig components within it as well. So it is worthwhile that a person, when he's getting medications or he's getting surgery, that he inquires about that. I saw a Muslim GP who prescribed some multivitamins, and without thinking about it, I got it. A few days later, I checked the ingredients and it had a significant component of alcohol in the syrup within it. So a lot of people don't check these things, even practicing doctors don't check these things. And so it's worthwhile inquiring about that. And those things have particular rulings with regards to surgeries that are needed absolutely. There's the allowance there that a person can use them because he needs it for his health. If it's cosmetic, then it is not allowed. That's easy to remember.
Probably even when it's halal.
Sorry, louder?
Probably maybe even when it's halal, cosmetic change.
Sure, yeah. Cosmetic surgery by and large is haram, right? You have to find really rare exceptions to find some cosmetic things that are halal. وَمَا أُهِلَّ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ بِهِ, and what has been slaughtered for other than Allah. The general principle, understand three things, okay? The first point is that if it has been slaughtered in the name of something other than Allah, it is always haram, mutlaqan. There's no other option around it. Okay? If it is a Muslim or a Kitabi doing the slaughtering and they slaughter in the name of Allah, it is considered halal. So even if a Christian says in the name of Allah, in the name of God, it is considered halal. It does not necessarily need to be a Muslim, with the sharat that the person is actually a Christian, not an atheist, okay, or a non-practicing Christian. Their food will not be considered. 39% Australians are atheists. That's the second component. The third thing to understand is that when slaughtering is done, then every slaughter needs to have the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala done within it. Okay? Herein then becomes the issue that we have in Western countries, particularly with chicken slaughter, that they will not be saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim with every single slaughter. Bismillah Allahu Akbar, they are not doing with every slaughter because of the sheer numbers that are coming through the factory. There is something like 250 per minute. So you try saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar 250 times in 1 minute, it's not actually physically possible, right? So the consideration then is that those things, there are two opinions here. One opinion here is that only the sheep that have, the animal that has Bismillah Allahu Akbar is halal, and the other is the opinion from the scholars from Saudi Arabia that they say that all of those are halal. Alhamdulillah, the majority of the Islamic, or I should say halal businesses that certify follow the principle that only the animal that has Bismillah Allahu Akbar on it is considered halal. Okay? And that's why the general principle is that chicken that is slaughtered by hand is much safer, because you can be sure that the chicken actually had Bismillah read on it, whereas the chicken that is machine slaughtered, you can't be sure that the chicken you're eating had Bismillah Allahu Akbar done on it. Okay. The fourth thing, I said three things, but there's one more. If a Muslim whose job is to do slaughtering, he forgets, it is still halal. Not for a Kitabi, okay? So it has to be a Muslim whose general thing is that he does the Bismillah Allahu Akbar. Why is that? Because he's slaughtering all day long. It might be that in one or two he wasn't paying attention, he slaughtered them without saying it. it will still be considered halal. Okay? The basmala has to be done before you slaughter it, not after you slaughtered it. Bismillah awalihi wa akhirihi is when you are eating for your food. Okay. Now, one thing, as you have said, it has reminded me that this people have come about saying that, if you don't know if it's halal or haram, just say Bismillah and eat it. Has no basis in the religion, has no basis in fiqh at all. You cannot just say Bismillah after the thing. There is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that the context is of a Sahabi eating in the house of a Sahabi. And so they had checked, is it halal or haram? And the Prophet said, say Bismillah and eat it. And the meaning there is not that your Bismillah makes it halal. No. The meaning here is that you are eating in a house of a Muslim. The general principle is that everything in a house of a Muslim is halal. Everything in the house of a Muslim is considered halal. You don't ask when you go to someone's house, is the food halal or haram?
In Sydney, even you go, someone you have invited, they ask you which butcher did you get the meat from.
Yeah, if they were my guests, I can tell you what I would do with them.
The chicken they ask.
I'm straightforward, shoot from the hips. You want to ask me that? That's no food for you. Thank you very much. Here's the door. But the reason is that the principle is that you are the house of a Muslim. You don't ask whether it is halal or haram. If you know that the person whose house you are going to, their income is halal, you don't go visit them. Simple. You don't eat with them. You know that their entire business is haram. They run a pub or something, Yeah, definitely. Then go and don't go and eat in their food, because their income is haram. That means all their food becomes haram. Similarly, someone who is known to drink alcohol, that kind of thing. Yes.
What about the donation? Is that considered the same thing?
When you are taking the donation, the general thing to say to the people is give from the good of your money, right? So there is a fatwa that is running around in Sydney, which is make drug money and then give. If you give a certain percentage, then all of it becomes haram, right? So they go and give some of it to sadaqah. I remember that I was in a fundraising dinner, and they asked, okay, so who will start? Someone give us a big number. So some guy full of tattoos, clearly who goes to the gym every day, he stood up and said, 100,000. And my first thought was, where does this money come from? Right? And then he walked out after that. So even the Quraysh, when they were rebuilding the Kaaba, they did not give any of their haram money into the building of the Kaaba. They said only our tayyib money will go into the building of the house. And our juhala, what do they say? Our drug money will go to the building of the masajid. So can you imagine praying in a masjid whose carpet and pillars are made from drug money? Can you imagine what's happening to your prayers? So, the general principle is that haram money should not be taken for donations. وَالْمُنْخَنِقَةُ is, I should have made notes, something that has fallen. No. Al-Munkhaniqa is something that has been killed by a blunt instrument. A strangulation, that's right. Yes, strangulation. So the fuqaha have discussed, the Al-Munkhaniqa is something that is strangulation, and Al-Mawqudha is a blunt instrument. Jazakallahu khair. So anything that strangulates the animal or drowns the animal is considered a munkhaniqa, so the meat of that animal is not considered halal. So if in the method of killing the animal they strangulate it and then the animal dies, even if they slaughtered it, it is not considered halal. Al-mawqudha is something that has been killed by a blunt instrument. So in hunting, they would use arrows, right? So the Prophet ﷺ allowed that, but if they used sticks or something blunt like that to kill the animal, then it was not halal. So herein then the fuqaha have discussed whether bullets will be considered something that is blunt or something that is sharp, and suffice to say that they don't agree over it. The fuqaha in Pakistan have generally said no, and others have said if it's a sharp bullet, then yes. You generally see that people who are hunting these days, they hunt with a rifle or something like that, and it's not a, I don't know what kind of bullets they use in that. Wal mutaraddiyatu, that's something that has fallen from a height and has died because of its injury. Wal natihatu, an animal that has been killed by the horns of another animal. Wama akala sabu'u, and whatever a carnivore or a vulture or something like that has eaten away until that animal has died. Okay? All these things now, these categories, the munkhaniqa, the mawqudha, the mutaraddiya, and natiha, wa ma akala sab. These 5 things, Allah says the exception about them is illa ma dhakkaytum, except if you get to the animal is still alive, and you slaughter it, then the animal becomes halal. Okay? So if, for example, the system they use in Australia is that they stun the animal. If the animal gets stunned and dies as a result of the stunning, it is haram. Simple. Because it died in a method that is mawqudha. Okay? If before dying the animal is slaughtered, even though the animal was stunned, because Allah says illa ma dhakkaytum, if it was slaughtered according to the correct method, then the animal becomes halal. Understand this? Last thing, and I'll finish with this and then we can have any questions, is what are the things that actually have to be slaughtered?
Everything except from seed, like
Sorry?
any,
What do you mean by everything? Define them.
any halal thing that can be.
Okay, in the neck, when you cut. Okay? What do you have to cut?
The front of the
The what?
Main vein.
The main veins
Yeah.
on both sides. What else? The windpipe, which is called the trachea. Okay? And Imam Malik says the food pipe as well.
food pipe.
As well. Okay? So when you are slaughtering, you slaughter and make sure the blood is coming out from both sides. You have an artery on both sides and you have a vein on both sides. And the artery will gush the blood out fast. That's the thing you must cut. Okay? And the trachea is where the breathing happens. That's what you must cut as well. What you don't cut the first time is the spine. Okay? Why is that important? Because as you cut it, the animal moves around, and that moving around pumps the blood out. And the more the blood gets out, the better the meat will be. If you cut the spine, then the animal will not move. And you will notice that if you go to the farm and you do your own slaughtering, the meat of that will taste better than any meat you will get in any butcher. Why? Because the butcher always stuns it. All the slaughterhouses, by Australian law, they have to stun the animal. Right? It does not remove as much blood as what you will do with your own hands. Okay? We'll stop with that. I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. Yes.
When the ayah is mansukh,
Mm-hmm.
how can